Hello everybody, Wheel Trouble here, and today we have a little bit of a rainy day, so I'm going to start prepping my bike for my vacation through the Ozarks. Last year when I did this, these stock tires didn't hold up like they should have, and I had to cut my vacation short. To that end, I upped the ante a little bit, and went ahead and picked up these Dunlop Sportmax 300s from Parts Unlimited. Thanks Parts Unlimited for getting these to me as quickly as you did. So throughout the course of this trip, I'm going to be feeding back to you guys, just to let you know how these tires are holding up for me. Here we have the tires installed on the bike. It was nice and easy, just removed the wheels, took them down to the dealership because, in all honesty, I am too lazy to care to do it myself. There's plenty of people that do, I have a lot of respect for them, but when it comes around to balancing and everything else, I'm just too lazy, and they have machines that make it nice and fast, and time is money in my opinion. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the odometer here just so we have a reference point for when we do the long-term review of these about a year from now. And let's take a look at this back wheel. Looks nice and sporty. The original tires that were on this bike, the Road Winners, those tires were rated for 41 PSI with a load of 661 pounds. These tires are identical to that in terms of load rating and PSI rating. So I chose, for the apples-to-apples comparison, to run these with the same tire pressure that I ran in those, which is the manufacturer recommended 29 and 32. You do want to adjust your tire pressure to whatever riding conditions you are in, having just said all of that. And so in wet weather, you might want to run a slightly lower PSI to go ahead and give you a larger contact patch. And if you wanted to go ahead and run a higher PSI, you're going to notice a more stiff ride. Today's the end of the first day of riding, and it was raining most of the day. It's actually sprinkling right now, so I'm going to make this short, which kind of needs to be anyway. Obviously, because of that, I couldn't push the tires to their limits. And don't know if you can see it here, but you can kind of see about as far as I was willing to push it during the few bits of dryness that we did have. Even then, the pavement was a little bit wet, but at no time did I ever actually feel like I was losing grip. We'll see how these do the rest of the week. Okay, it is the end of day 2, and had a great time trying to test out these tires. Wound up having to ride through about 5 hours of rain, despite what you see back there. And it was a fairly heavy storm, giving me a great chance to see what these tires would hold up through in the worst case scenario. And I did lose traction a couple times, nothing bad, and each time it regained traction very quickly, and it was always either mud or gravel, something in the road that was obviously in the way preventing it. Other than that, I was actually able to take corners a lot faster than I would have on the stock tires. It was very impressive to see what that little bit extra contact patch really does. Hey everybody, it's day 3 of my Ozark ride, and it finally dried out so I could really see how comfortable I was on these tires. And these tires have a lot more grip than I know what to do with, which is a great problem. My old IRCs, towards the end, I would start to actually lose traction, so I never really could feel comfortable trying to get rid of the chicken strips. And today, I actually managed to start wearing out the side here on these tires on the left side. It's a wonderful, wonderful feeling. More to follow, but in all honesty, these tires are absolutely wonderful. And other than a little bit of hydroplaning, which is to be expected on a lightweight bike like this at 70 miles an hour, things went really well. End of day 4. Today was the exact opposite of yesterday. It started off nice and dry, so coming out of Mountain View, I was really able to enjoy myself and really push the bike again. Wonderful. It was better than a cup of coffee, which is good because the last hotel barely had anything in the way of breakfast anyway. We did end up getting rain once I hit Missouri, and the roads there were hit or miss. And on the roads that weren't great, since I was pushing these tires harder than I was ever able to push my old tires, I had to rely on this front wheel a lot more, which is the reason I'm sitting up here. There were a few times I'd hit rocks, things like that I just couldn't see for the rain, and I'd feel the front end jump really quick, which is usually a sign that things are going to go very bad. But these tires quickly, even in the rain, on the slick pavement, were able to regain traction like that. It was perfect. Alright, I'm back after 5 days in the Ozarks, 1,500 miles on these tires, which is a quarter of the life I would get out of the old tires. This isn't the long-term test. Have no clue how long these will actually last me. That'll be found out later. And it's time to talk about the cons. The only con that most people really come up with on these tires is going to be the price point. And let's really talk about that. Yes, I realize that you can pick up the IRCs from certain outlets for $140 including the shipping. That doesn't count installation costs, things like that. These tires, yeah, they're more expensive. And most people, when they're going for a performance part on this motorcycle, they start looking at things that add horsepower rather than trying to use the horsepower you've already got. And so on this bike, the horsepower gains you can get from most modifications you're better off going on a diet. Let's call it what it is. So, that brings us to the tires. Are they worth the money for the upgrade? And the answer is absolutely. I've laid this bike over a couple times, and it seems silly when I do it. There's not much to this bike. And so, every time that it's happened, it's always been because I've lost traction. And I didn't really think that the old tires were what was holding me back, but they really were. I've mentioned in this video losing traction in the mud. That would have happened on the old tires. And going over the footage, I was going much faster on these tires when it happened. And these tires, every time, even when I hit a rock that would try to shake the front end loose, every time these tires would get purchased back, whether it was wet or dry. They didn't care. Now, sure, I wasn't dragging a knee when those would happen, but that's still farther than the old tires would have gone. So that's a major pro in my book. These were absolutely wonderful. Even the one time I power slid, oh, you guys didn't know about that, sorry. Yeah, I had one, really bad pavement, knew it was bad pavement. I wanted to see what these tires would do. Being a little bit reckless, I went ahead and gunned it, and these just, while I drifted in the line, they did what tires are supposed to, is, slip and grip. And it was good. It was really good. It was a lot of fun, more fun than I thought I could have on a 250. And so, definitely in my book, worth the upgrade. And while we're sick of hearing this old catchphrase that's been around since the 80s, it is worth getting yourself a set of super sticky Dunlops. So the Sportmax 300s, definitely going to be the next tires I could put on this, and I'll be pretty faithful to them. It was worth every penny, and made this bike far more fun than I've ever had on it before. As for the Psi rating, I did end up finally upgrading it before the trip ended, and decided to go 36 in the back, 32 in the front, and run it there. Slightly smaller contact patch than the apples-to-apples comparison I was going to go for, but I found I didn't really need it. These had more than enough traction to do what I wanted at the higher PSI. What are you waiting for? Told you what I thought of these tires. Go to the store and pick yourself up a set of these super sticky Dunlops. Trust me, you'll thank me for it.